It started as a normal Sunday night in Houston, Texas. The kind of humid June evening when streetlights buzz softly and the air smells of summer rain. Families were finishing dinner. Children were scrolling on their phones, and the city pulsed with quiet routine. But somewhere in North Houston, a 12-year-old girl named Jocelyn Nungaray stepped out of her home, barefoot curiosity leading her into the darkness. By sunrise, that same city would awaken to horror. A young life stolen. A neighborhood forever scarred. The discovery of Jocelyn's body beneath a bridge would ignite a storm of grief, anger, and fear across America. This isn't just a story about a crime. It's a warning. Because what happened that night could happen anywhere, to anyone's child. And understanding how it unfolded may be the only way to stop it from happening again. It was the night of June 16th, 2024. A warm, sticky Sunday in North Houston, Texas. The streetlights glowed dimly over Rankin Road, and most homes had already gone quiet. Around 10 p.m., 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray slipped out of her apartment without her mother noticing. No one could have imagined that the next 8 hours would rewrite the meaning of safe neighborhood. Jocelyn was a bright, shy girl who loved drawing and TikTok videos. She lived with her mother and younger brother in an apartment complex near Kuykendall Road. Her friends described her as polite, gentle, and always smiling. A child who trusted too easily. 2 men were also roaming those same streets that night. Johan Jose Martinez Rangel, 22, and Franklin Jose Peña Ramos, 26. Undocumented immigrants from Venezuela who had recently crossed the southern border. Both were looking for work in the area, but according to police, their movements that night would lead to something far darker. At around 12:17 a.m., surveillance cameras at a nearby 7-Eleven captured Jocelyn talking with the 2 men. Moments later, they were seen walking together toward a small bridge on West Rankin Road. The rest of that footage would never be found, and Jocelyn would never come home. By 6:15 a.m., a local woman walking near the creek saw something tangled in the shallow water. It was Jocelyn's lifeless body. The city of Houston would never forget that morning, and the nation would soon learn her name. Just before 10 p.m. on June 16, 2024, the streets of North Houston shimmered under the glow of yellow sodium lights. Jocelyn had argued lightly with her mother about bedtime, but it was nothing unusual. Restless and curious, she slipped out quietly, phone in hand, wearing her pink slides and a loose t-shirt. The night was heavy and still, the kind of silence that makes even footsteps sound too loud. She wandered toward the Rankin and Kuykendall intersection, a short 10-minute walk from home. Surveillance footage, later recovered from nearby stores, showed the small figure of Jocelyn walking alone, pausing occasionally to check her phone. Around 11:40 p.m., 2 men entered the same frame, Martinez Rangel and Peña Ramos. They appeared relaxed, laughing, both wearing hoodies despite the heat. At 12:17 a.m., the cameras of a 7-Eleven captured the first direct contact. Jocelyn was standing outside near the vending machines when the 2 approached her. One of them offered her a soda. The other gestured toward the street, as if inviting her to walk. Her hesitation lasted only seconds before she followed. That grainy footage became the last known image of Jocelyn alive. What police would later reconstruct was chilling. The men lured her under the pretext of showing her something cool by the bridge. They walked along the empty road for nearly half a mile, disappearing from every visible camera. Somewhere along that path, her trust met their intent. The timestamp on the last camera, 12:18 a.m., froze forever, the moment innocence and evil crossed paths. Hours later, investigators would stare at that footage over and over, wondering what she thought in those final steps, and how two strangers could so easily erase a child from the world. The bridge over West Rankin Road is the kind of place few notice in daylight. Narrow, quiet, and lined with overgrown grass that hides the creek beneath. But after midnight, it becomes a void of shadows, lit only by the distant hum of highway lights. That's where Jocelyn walked with the two men, unaware that every step was drawing her closer to horror. Phone data later recovered by detectives placed her movement at 12:40 a.m., just a few hundred feet from the bridge. A nearby security camera from a warehouse picked up blurred motion. 3 figures walking, one smaller than the rest. One of the men had his arm over her shoulders, almost as if guiding her. To anyone else, it might have looked like an older brother walking his sister home. What happened next took only minutes. Investigators believe that once they reached the bridge, the men's tone changed. Words turned into restraint. Jocelyn struggled. Her phone dropped to the concrete. When police later found it, the screen was cracked, and the last timestamp read 12:47 a.m. Forensic analysis revealed bruising on her neck consistent with manual strangulation, the killer's hands pressing down as she fought for air. Evidence suggested one held her while the other choked her. Then, silence. The kind of silence that swallows everything. They carried her small body to the side of the bridge and pushed it over the rail into the shallow creek below. Water rippled, carrying away the last traces of breath. No one heard the splash. No cars passed by. Only 2 men stood above the dark water, breathing heavily, whispering something in Spanish, before walking away into the night. That bridge would look the same by morning, but the ground beneath it would hold a secret that would soon shock the entire country. At 6:15 a.m. on June 17, 2024, the sun was barely up over North Houston when a woman walking her dog along West Rankin Road stopped abruptly. The creek below the bridge shimmered with morning light, but something pale was caught in the reeds. Too still, too small. She stepped closer, her breath catching when she realized it wasn't a doll. It was a body. Officers from the Houston Police Department arrived within minutes. They cordoned off the area with yellow tape as the woman stood shaking beside her dog. Beneath the bridge lay the lifeless form of a young girl, partially submerged in the shallow, murky water. Her hair was tangled with mud, and her pink slides floated nearby. The current swirled lazily around her neck, bruised, marked by the clear imprint of fingers. Detectives waded carefully into the water, documenting every angle before lifting her out. It was obvious, one officer would later tell reporters. Someone put her there. The creek was quiet, except for the clicking of cameras and the hum of radios. By 8:30 a.m., the medical examiner's van arrived. When they turned her over, a small silver earring glinted in the sunlight. It matched the description of the one Jocelyn had been wearing when she vanished. Moments later, a deputy found a cracked cell phone lodged between two rocks a few feet away. The screen, though shattered, still displayed the wallpaper. A smiling 12-year-old girl hugging her puppy. That image would become the face of the case. By mid-morning, investigators confirmed her identity. Jocelyn Nungaray, age 12. The autopsy would later reveal she'd been sexually assaulted and strangled, dying sometime around 1 a.m. There were no drugs in her system, no chance to escape. News of the discovery spread fast. Local outlets flashed the headline, 12-year-old girl found dead in Houston Creek. Within hours, national networks picked it up. Outside her apartment complex, neighbors gathered with candles and pink balloons, whispering prayers. Jocelyn's mother, her face pale and trembling, told reporters, "She was just a baby. She never even had a chance." Behind the police tape, detectives knew this was no random act, and whoever had done this had vanished into the city's darkness just hours earlier. The race to find them had begun. By the evening of June 17th, Houston police had already pieced together the first threads. Detectives pored over surveillance footage from the 7-Eleven, frame by frame, until the blurry faces of two men appeared beside Jocelyn. Using time-stamped angles from nearby gas stations and apartment complexes, they built a digital trail that stretched across North Houston, a breadcrumb path left by two killers who thought the dark could hide them. One clip showed the men walking away from the bridge at 1:12 a.m., heading toward a nearby apartment complex at 13,355 Northborough Drive. They were calm, one lighting a cigarette, the other glancing back once toward the creek. That footage became the breakthrough investigators needed. Detectives matched the men's clothing with earlier footage from the convenience store. Same hoodies, same sneakers. HPD traced the route to the Canfield Lakes apartments, a cluster of beige buildings housing dozens of recent arrivals. Working with federal immigration authorities, they identified two names that fit the description: Johan Jose Martinez Rangel and Franklin Jose Peña Ramos, both Venezuelan nationals who had entered the U.S. illegally through the southern border only months earlier. On June 20th, just 3 days after Jocelyn's body was found, HPD SWAT units surrounded the apartment at dawn. Officers moved in silently, flashlights slicing through the dark hallways. When they kicked open the door, both men were inside. One asleep, the other pretending to be. They were arrested without resistance. Inside the apartment, detectives found a set of wet clothes, a half-empty bottle of bleach, and Jocelyn's missing phone case. DNA samples were rushed to the lab. Within 48 hours, results confirmed a perfect match between the suspects and biological evidence found on Jocelyn's body. Public outrage exploded. News anchors demanded answers. Politicians debated border policy. The city mourned. But behind the scenes, investigators uncovered something even darker. Intelligence suggesting both suspects had ties to Tren de Aragua, a violent Venezuelan gang expanding through Latin America. If true, this wasn't just a local crime. It was part of something much larger. For Houston detectives, though, the mission was simpler: get justice for Jocelyn. And they were just getting started. The city of Houston was still in mourning when detectives from the Homicide Division gathered around a digital map glowing in the darkened briefing room. Every pin, every timestamp told a story. From Jocelyn's last known sighting outside the 7-Eleven to the shadowy figures walking toward West Rankin Bridge. By then, they had reviewed over 400 hours of surveillance footage, tracked cell tower pings, and cross-referenced immigration databases for any trace of the two men seen in the video. The break came on June 19th, just 48 hours after Jocelyn's body was discovered. A surveillance camera from an apartment complex half a mile away showed the two suspects walking home at 1:12 a.m., one lighting a cigarette, the other tossing something into a dumpster. Detectives retrieved what was left: a bleach-stained shirt, mud-caked shoes, and a half-empty bottle of beer. Mini reveal number 1. The DNA on the collar of that shirt matched the trace evidence found beneath Jocelyn's fingernails. She had fought back. Armed with a warrant, Houston Police SWAT surrounded apartment 312 at 13,355 Northborough Drive in the early hours of June 20th, 2024. The raid was swift. One suspect, Johan Martinez Rangel, was found asleep on the couch. The other, Franklin Peña Ramos, was hiding in the bathroom, still wearing the same hoodie seen in the 7-Eleven footage. Both men were arrested without resistance, but their silence spoke louder than words. At the station, investigators confronted them separately. Rangel stared at the table, answering only in short Spanish phrases. Peña wept, muttering, "It wasn't supposed to go that far." Mini reveal number 2. Hours later, lab results confirmed a 100% DNA match between both suspects and samples taken from Jocelyn's body. The case, from a forensic standpoint, was airtight. When news of the arrests hit the airwaves, outrage exploded. Parents wept openly. Politicians clashed over border security. Reporters camped outside the Harris County Jail, shouting questions no one could answer. Why her? Why a child? But detectives weren't done. As they traced the suspects' backgrounds, a disturbing connection emerged. Both men had recently arrived from Venezuela and were suspected affiliates of Tren de Aragua, a brutal transnational gang known for trafficking and extortion. Intelligence suggested they had crossed the southern border in late 2023, evading deportation. Mini reveal number 3. What began as a local homicide investigation now had potential ties to organized crime operating across state lines. Federal agencies, including Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, quietly stepped in to assist. During interrogations, Peña's statements wavered. He admitted to meeting Jocelyn that night, but insisted Rangel lost control. Rangel, on the other hand, accused Peña of strangling her. Their conflicting stories became the cornerstone of the prosecution's theory. Both men acted together, premeditated and deliberate. By late June 2024, the Harris County District Attorney's Office formally charged both with capital murder, citing the aggravating factors of sexual assault and kidnapping. The charge carried the death penalty. Prosecutor Sean Tier addressed reporters. What happened to Jocelyn was unspeakable. The state of Texas will pursue the maximum punishment allowed by law. In the courtroom, Jocelyn's mother sat silently, clutching her daughter's school photo. As the suspects were led in, she whispered through tears, "Look at me. Remember her face." They didn't. Mini reveal number 4. Despite their stoic appearance, investigators learned both suspects had tried to buy bus tickets to Louisiana the night before their arrest, an escape plan thwarted by hours. As the case unfolded, the public outcry grew. Houston residents organized vigils.
Lawmakers cited Jocelyn's murder in debates over immigration reform.
Online, her photo, that same smiling wallpaper from her phone, became a rallying image for child safety advocates nationwide. In December 2024, prosecutors announced their intent to seek the death penalty. The evidence was overwhelming, the motive senseless, and the pain immeasurable. At a press conference, an HPD detective summed it up. "We didn't just lose a child. We lost a piece of innocence that can't be brought back." When the suspects were escorted out of court in handcuffs, a crowd gathered outside the courthouse chanting her name. Justice for Jocelyn. Inside the courtroom, the final image displayed on the projector was taken from her phone. A selfie, smiling beneath Houston's blue sky. That image lingered as the prosecutor spoke his final line. 12 years old. That's all she got. And in the quiet that followed, even hardened reporters wiped their eyes.
The trial hasn't ended yet, but for Houston, for Texas, and for every parent who watched the news that week, the sentence was already written in grief. Jocelyn's name became more than a headline. It became a reminder that evil doesn't always knock on the door. Sometimes it waits under the streetlights. Her story forced a nation to confront difficult truths about safety, about trust, about how easily innocence can vanish in the span of a few minutes. The bridge on West Rankin Road still stands, quiet and unremarkable, but flowers now rest along its railing. Each one carries a note, a prayer, a promise that her life will not be forgotten. In the weeks after the murder, Houston's community rallied. Neighbors started self-defense classes for kids. Volunteers distributed safety flyers at schools. Street cameras were repaired, lights replaced. But beyond the policies and the precautions, something deeper changed. A collective awareness that danger often hides in plain sight. For Jocelyn's mother, each day since June 17th has been a battle between remembering and surviving. She still keeps her daughter's drawings taped to the refrigerator, the colors fading slowly under kitchen light. "I don't want people to just feel sorry," she said quietly. "I want them to pay attention. Because attention, vigilance, is what might save the next child. When we tell stories like this, they're not just tales of crime and punishment. They're lessons written in heartbreak." Jocelyn's final walk teaches every parent, every friend, every stranger, that a moment's decision can decide everything. So as you finish listening to this story, take a breath. Look around. Think of the people you love, your children, your siblings, the kids who trust the world to be kind. And remember Jocelyn. She was 12 years old. She had a favorite song, a favorite color, a future. And somewhere, in remembering her, maybe we can protect someone else. Thank you for listening to Crimes That Shocked the World. If Jocelyn's story moved you, leave a comment. Tell us where you're listening from, what device you're using, whether it's on your drive to work or late at night at home. Your voice matters. Share this story, start a conversation, and help keep awareness alive. Because justice isn't just found in a courtroom. Sometimes it starts with you.